Hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Hermitcraft Season 6. And I'm hanging out in the shopping area, or the furthest part of the shopping area. You see, all of this space right here is part of the shopping district. And what you're going to see me do at the beginning of this episode, you're probably going to see in other Hermits videos, just because the shopping area gains a lot of traffic, right? And I'm also going to do something in this episode that's going to take a lot of time. It is something to do with what's here in front of me. But first of all, we want to pay attention to the obsidian blocks just there below me. There's a couple more coming up just ahead, and I'm flying at a perfect diagonal angle here. There's the next ones. Then we have some right next to the old portal. There you go, on the grounds, just below me. And then last of all, again, kind of where I'm at, above my head, there is some more obsidian right there. Those are going to make 4 different portals that go through this area, as this giant tree that Scar is working on behind me is now part of the shopping district, which is really cool. So I thought we'd attach a portal down the end here, and I've made it so that they're a perfect diagonal angle where they go 72 blocks apart from one another. And the reason it's 72 is because that is divisible by 8, and in the Nether everything is divided by 8 in terms of where you travel in the overworld. So that means we can have 4 evenly spaced portals that go through the entire area, and that'll encourage the hermits to come and start building in this area as well. But something else that will encourage them is this structure that we are going to be building at the end of this area. So there used to be some spruce trees here and some plants and sugarcane. You may have seen them in other hermits videos. Those are all part of Biffa's early game farming operation. So I asked him, would it be okay if I rip those out, because we're going to build something really cool here. And he said it was fine. So this is going to be the location of a very special build. And before we get to the details of that, we're going to set up these portals, and I need to get some obsidian. And instead of going into some caves, I figured let's come to the end here where there's plenty of the stuff. And thanks to stocking up on the obsidian, I've been able to build 4 of these portals here in the Nether. They are all equally distanced apart from one another on a diagonal axis. It's all very neat and orderly, and all of the portals synchronized correctly as well. The only one to comment on is this one right here, because I did a little bit of a digging. It was on top of a hill, and when we go through to the overworld, you'll see that I've just leveled it out here. So with that out of the way, we now have a portal down this end of the shopping area, which is convenient for me as it's right next to where we're going to be building this area. And I got here a moment ago and I noticed a chest I didn't see before. It is the mystery chest, and I'm wondering what's inside of it. Absolutely nothing. Well, that was really disappointing. Jeez, I thought we might have some sapling sticks and probably rotted flesh. But anyway, I've alluded to building something rather large in this space over here, and I've since decided and made plans with other hermits and stuff. We're going to have a couple extra episodes this week, so I'm going to actually just focus on the base today. We're going to do the base structure over here, and then we're going to get to work on some of the more admin-y command stuff, but I will talk about that more when we get to it. As of right now, I'm going to grab my building blocks, and the first thing we're going to do is start off with our cracked and mossy stone bricks as well as regular stone bricks. And I actually don't have a lot of these. Well, what I want to do is stick with the shape that we've got right here, but extend the base downwards into the ground. That's the very first thing we shall do. And now I interrupt my own video to bring you an announcement. There is going to be a Hermitcraft stream date on Saturday, September the 22nd. That is 16 hours of straight Hermitcraft from the Hermitcraft server. We are loosely going to be focusing on the shopping area. Quite a few of us expressed some interest in spending some of the time in our streams over there, tidying up the place, lighting it up, making it look as amazing as possible. So that's what's going to be happening on that day. Put it in your calendar, and if you're looking at the schedule and you might be a little bit confused, Tango and Impulse are actually streaming at the same time because they're doing a dual stream. So there's 8 streams in total, and the 2 of those will be streaming together. So all the times and links are on your screen. Put it in your calendar, and hopefully I'll see you on Saturday. But let's get back to the video. So now our foundations are in place, and what you'll probably notice is that I've lowered everything down technically by 1 block, but then it goes all the way down to the ground, and it looks impressive more so in these corners where it really stretches down. Now on these walls on the side, we're able to put in stair blocks and add a little extra detail alongside the mossy and the cracked bricks. Where it's diagonal, I haven't done that. I mean, I could have, I guess, because I would just put one of these on the inside. Well, maybe I'll go around and change that again, because there's no reason I couldn't have done that, except for some reason I thought I couldn't. But anyway, I've lowered everything down by 1 block because what I want to do is give this shape and this structure a little bit of indentation. So we're going to go up by, I think, 2 or maybe 3 blocks. I've actually gone up by 4. I'm talking about the gap that we will create. So we will have several instances of this, and then we'll copy the diagonal again, and we'll have a pillar over here at the front, and then we'll put some blocks behind it which act like panels, so that way our structure as it rises out of the ground has some shape to it. So eventually we're going to need a way across and into this area. The entrance is probably literally going to be somewhere here on the floor. So I was thinking maybe these 2 panels right here stay open and we build some sort of bridge going across from over here. And then I thought it might be a cool idea to kind of submerge the bridge a little bit, do something really different from what you would normally expect. I've got a little bit of a vision for that in my head, if that happened to make no sense whatsoever. Another thing I need on me right now is just a couple of blocks down here to place these panels. We're going to go with andesite, I think. I reckon this will end up looking good. Although it is very grey, so do I want to put some colour down over here? I'm not sure. Maybe prismarine blocks would look good, actually. But yes, we're just going to install panels like this, first of all. Yes, holding down spacebar, moving backwards when you're in water with an elytra. This is something I discovered just the other day. I am now doing a little bit of backstroke. Yeah, I am, well, I'm going the wrong direction for backstroke, but literally lying on my back in the water here. This is so silly. So now we got options and limited options over here, as I had a tiny bit of dark prismarine. Then we have regular prismarine, which straight away I can say no to. Then we have regular prismarine bricks. And a creeper, apparently. Jeez. And I think we're going to go with the andesite. Very tempted by the dark prismarine over there, but it is an expensive block, and knowing what we're going to be building on top of this, I think it's actually a good idea to leave the prismarine blocks out of this for now. So I'm getting rather into this. As you can see, it's being built up. I've drained all of the water from the inside using my sponges. That wasn't particularly necessary, but decided to do it anyway. And we're going to keep using the andesite. I want the base to be very grey overall to leave attention for what is going to eventually be above here. But in this episode we won't actually be building much higher than the base. So I think the next time I bring this back in, this will all be finished. But for the level that we're working on right now, we're going to have these little arches going across. Then on top of it we're going to have stairs coming back in like this, and this is then going to create a second level, and that level will be made out of slabs like our pathway down there is, and then that means that nothing's able to spawn up here, and eventually I'll spawn proof this with some glass panes or something along those lines. So this will be where our second floor is. Then we're going to have one more rise, and that'll be the last thing we do for now. So the construction work here is complete, and in a moment we'll be heading into another world to do some technical stuff, but as of right now I had my camera account on, so I thought we'd look at it from up here, and I've got to say, wow, this turned out really good. So much better than I expected, because the entire time I was building it I was only seeing it from the first person. So to stop things like creepers spawning, at least on this level here, I've added in some glass panes. Then behind me what you'll see is at this middle point where it's too wide, we have the arches like this where they join together. And then I thought what we'd do on the floor above is we'd make it so our arches are either side and we had a wider bit in the middle. And those decisions ended up looking really fantastic. It is a little bit on the grey side, but this is the perfect base for what is to come. However, it'll be a while before we start building what will be up here, and for now, I'm going to have to leave you wondering. So this season of Hermitcraft, you would have seen some mysterious gems popping up in the chests found in dungeons, end cities, strongholds, temples, all those sorts of things had custom loot this season, being these 5 types of gems. So they probably look pretty familiar, right? Now these were for trading with villagers, and we haven't decided on all the things that are going to be traded as of yet. So in this video we're going to be focusing on 2 different types of trade. But first of all, let's go through what these could possibly be used for in the future. So for example, the Sapphire Gem, you might be able to trade with a specific villager for different types of blocks, these ones being miniature ore blocks, which is very useful for doing decorations in caves and that sort of stuff. Then we have another example right here. Perhaps amethyst gems are good for getting lettered blocks like we have here. You could use those to put the name of a sign outside of a shop in the form of micro blocks. Could look really cool, right? And then we have this fella who's trading aquamarine gems for possibly some food items. Now we're yet to decide on what exactly is going to be tradable. We'll figure that out soon in the future. But the one thing that we have agreed on that is going to be being done today, I guess, is the ability to trade these for player heads. Now we're actually going to start off by making all 5 types tradable for player heads, and so we will have an intermediate currency which is literally a blank player head right here. So you could go to this villager and trade any type of gem for a blank player head, and then you go to another villager to trade that blank player head. And so here are the player heads, and here are some of the different hermits and their heads, and then we'll be able to put those into the world and start to use them, as you've seen recently in the tag HQ. So now they're going to be accessible for every hermit on the server. So in order to create the commands that summon the villagers that will have all of these trades, we need to go to 2 websites. And the first one is minecraft-heads.com. If we click on custom heads over here, there will be a menu for different categories on the side. But what we want to do is go to custom heads generator, and then we can type in the name. This one right here is already remembered from where I was doing this a second ago. So then we click on create give code, and guess what it gives us? The command for creating this head, but specifically with the texture stored inside of it as well, which is really important for reducing lag in the world. So this right here we need to copy and hold on to for future reference. Now this second website may be where things seem to get a little bit complicated, but if ever you've wanted to learn commands, this is a fantastic website for getting into it, as it generates commands that will actually work for you. So we are on mcstacker.net, and we're here to use the summon command because we want to create custom villagers with custom trades. Now when we click on this, you might get a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that you're seeing here, but the cool thing is you only really need to take it one step at a time. So if I type in villager over here, it is then going to create the command for summoning a villager up the top right here, and as I add information in the various places on this side over here, it will start to appear in the command up there, and then you can look at the structure and understand what is going on. Now one of the things that we want to do is make our villagers invulnerable. That means that zombies and whatnot won't be able to kill them. Remember, these are no normal villagers, so we want to protect them when they're inside our world. We could also make the villagers silent. We're going to have a lot of them in the same area together, so we might make them silent at some point if it gets annoying. We could even set their AI to false, which means they would just sort of stand in one place doing nothing. We're not going to do either of those things. The first thing that we're going to do is put an item on its head, and you can see here there is a big list of things to choose from. We're going to go for a player head because we're actually going to put a custom player head on the villagers that we trade with, so they're more unique looking, which I think would be really fun. But this is where we're going to step outside of the automated part of MC Stacker and start to add in our own code. So let's say I wanted to put my head on the villager. I could type it in here, but now what we need to do is take this command right here and then go and add in the texture stuff that I showed you a moment ago from this website, the Minecraft Heads one. Now I've searched for villager here, so what I could then go and do is pick out one like the villager pirate, and we'd have a little bit more of a unique looking fella. So we will take some of this code right here and then we'll stitch it into the one from MC Stacker, and that way we can create a villager with its own head. And I would say that that is a success. What do you have to trade though? You are just a regular trader, I see. Well, the next thing to work on, I guess, is then adding some custom trades then, right? But this guy looks ridiculous, and we can put any face we like onto these villagers now. So back to the MC Stacker website, we're looking at the summon command. We've got our command up the top here. Of course, this isn't modified to have the player head on, but now we need to work on the trades that it has. And over here we can set its profession. I'm going to set this one to a nitwit because a nitwit doesn't have any trades by default. So now we're looking at the trade window. We're going to make it so that you can't get XP from this just because it's our own custom thing. We don't want to make it another source of XP. Now, max uses, we want to set this as high as we can because we don't want the trades to reset. And when we click on the question mark, it actually gives us the number right here. So we can copy that and paste it into max uses. Those question marks are next to pretty much everything on here. So it's a great way to learn about what each of these tags are. And coming back to our trade, this is basically where things start to get real messy because what we need to do is trade a player head, but not just any player head, the one that is the amethyst or the topaz gem, and that means that I've got to copy and paste lots of special stuff into here to identify the correct player head. And then we do the same thing on the selling bit as well because we're going to be selling the Hermit Heads, and that means lots of copy and pasting into this command right here. Each time you click plus over here, it adds an extra set of fields for more trades. So that's the way that you can put multiple trades onto a villager. So I've got one last tip for you, and that's to use a program called Notepad++. It's got a very powerful feature, which is when you click on a bracket, it shows you where the other part of that bracket is, and you need to balance your brackets because if you have extra ones, the game won't be able to read it. So that's really useful, and what I'm in the process of doing is looking for this trade right here where it says Skull Owner Look Free. There's a Look 4 and 5 as well, and that tells me exactly where to look so I can search it up, and then I've got to replace the details of that trade with this over here, and the loot table is actually formatted differently. It's got some rather funky stuff with slashes and special symbols, so I have this little checklist put together of things that I've got to search for and remove when I copy the bulk of all of this from that side over to this side into our loot table. Our test world has turned into an amusing place, but not to get too distracted, I deliberately put a mistake into this command, and when I paste it in here, it gives you an error message that is actually very useful because it tells you exactly where to go and look for the problem. 1575 is the number. And here in Notepad++ at the very bottom where it says coal, we have 1575. So this bracket right here is the extra one that I added in. So when I delete that, the command will then be able to work again. I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is this took me a very long time because we ran into one really silly little problem with command blocks right at the end. So these traders over here don't actually trade anything if I put yellow right here, except these ones do, and eventually we managed to figure out exactly why that was. It's because command blocks don't pass this symbol right here, which is apparently no longer on my clipboard. I'm just going to put the symbol on the screen. This was previously used to give text colours like gold and red, and now it's being phased out of the game, and so the command blocks over there ignore it, which causes a problem. But one way you can still use it in the game is by using the function. So now we've got this right here. If we summon in a villager like this, it will then be able to make the trades, as you can see. And now, of course, our job is to make a room for where these villagers are going to go. So I've dug this down a couple of blocks. I've added in this staircase at the entrance area. And I think what we're going to do is aim at keeping the same shape and some of the same textures like the andesite, but throw in extra blocks and kind of spruce up all of the walls here. So we end up with a very similar feeling room, except it's been decorated. And I think the material I'd like to use in this room will be prismarine, so I've crafted up a bunch of that, and I've got some sea lanterns for lighting as well. Now that, my friends, is looking interesting, let's say. I feel like the bottom of the room is going to have to make a lot of sense when you compare it to the top of the room, because that's an interesting build. And you know what, prismarine doesn't really work with too many other textures well, but it looks nice next to sandstone, and it kind of looks nice next to andesite. It's those two, though, that don't particularly go too well together. But anyway, we're going to make it work, and we'll probably introduce bone blocks down here, because that's got a nice and smooth texture that matches the sandstone, but it's also a little bit brighter as well. And for the shape of this room, I think what I'm going to do is take the andesite over here on the corner and build them up like so, and then at some point it should come across and meet that. So it's going to kind of form that shape. And then, will it come all the way across here, actually? Yes, it lines up with that again. Alright, placing the andesite like that, I really feel like it kind of solidified and leveled up the look that we're going for here. I am actually quite happy with this now. But what's next, I'm not quite sure. I know we need to bring that bone block in, and I originally thought I'd be adding it along the back, so maybe its place is on the floor, and also I'm experimenting with this craziness right here. So this room has now developed a really strange ambience to it, as the middle here is so dark, and then there's this constant source of light around the outside. I think I might have overdid it with these sea lanterns, and all of this is subject to change. We can come back and make modifications. I think over at the front here it gets a little bit dark, so I've been thinking about maybe putting like a light source up here as well, but something that's more discreet, maybe like an end rod, you know. But I'm not trying to overthink this here, because I spent a lot of time working on those villages, and we really need to put them in the world here. So I've got like a booth design that's pretty naff, and I'd like to make this look a lot more interesting. This guy is rude. I was not ready to record. But he seems to have just appeared the second that this villager was summoned in. I've got a feeling it socially spawned, and it did so with a trident. Get out of here, buddy. Did you drop your trident? No. That was so strange. Like, literally, it just appeared here and started throwing tridents at this guy straight away. Now, he's invulnerable. Let's remember that. So, another one! What the heck? Anyway, I shouldn't be able to damage you. Yes, look, I punch, nothing happens. This is a beautiful build over here. One day it's going to be even more magnificent. But right now, I've kind of run out of my Minecraft Steam at the moment. I need to refresh myself from this project. And I was looking at this room, and I was thinking the shape does not encourage you to like explore these outside areas. It feels like it focuses your attention on the middle here. So I've set up something temporarily. But I think what we'll end up doing is having a big staircase that leads down to sort of a big panel on one side where we could build something interesting and have lots of these villages to trade with in the future. So this is temporary right now, and I'm going to grab, let's see, what one to have the most? Amethyst gem? I'm going to take a couple of my amethyst gems and test this on the server. Fingers crossed everything has gone to plan. Look at that, we got ourselves 2 player heads. Now I don't want to be a Steve, and I don't know which of the Hermit Heads I'm going to pick out here. So I believe that a giant staircase leading down to some big old panel full of villagers to trade with is the way to go. If you've got any ideas for what that panel would look like, feel free to tweet them at me. I always appreciate it when people share their creativity. As right now, I've not got much, but as I said, I've kind of exhausted my energy for this episode, right? And the Hermit Head that I picked out is none other than, can you guess it? Mr. Corrales. Man, I love that expression. There is someone that I truly miss from the Hermitcraft server. Look at those eyes, man. That shocked expression. I love it. Classic skin. And I think this is where we're going to end the episode. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like. As always, thank you for your support. And I'll see you soon with another episode of Hermitcraft.